Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cultivate CNY. And if you're new here, welcome to the show. Cultivate CNY is a podcast show that is produced right in the heart of downtown Syracuse. And I, the host, Alex Canavan, I get to interview some pretty awesome people that are doing incredible things for this region. So I absolutely love what I do. And before I forget, if you enjoy this episode, please be sure to leave a rating and review. It helps us out so much and it allows us to continue the work that we're doing here. This week's episode, we have on Melanie, Kim, and Katrina from CNY Community Foundation, and you guys are in for a treat. We touch on all things leadership, boundaries, conflict resolution. We even hear some stories about the ladies' careers, lives, and what it's been like being the first and sometimes only woman in their path. We talk about the importance of leadership and having real, true connection and support. And of course, we get into all of the exciting things that they're working on over at the foundation. So I don't want to spoil it for you guys, so we're going to get right into it. Without further ado, let's welcome Melanie, Kim, and Katrina to Cultivate CNY. All right. Well, CNY Community Foundation, welcome to Cultivate CNY. I'm so excited to have you all here today. And I think this is going to be an incredible conversation. So before we get into the nitty gritty of this episode, I want you all to introduce yourself because we do have a full group on today. And I'm just going to start from my left to my right. So Katrina.
My name is Katrina Crocker. I'm the Vice President of Communications at the Community Foundation.
Alex, I am Melanie Littlejohn, President and CEO of the Community Foundation. And thanks so much for inviting us today.
Hi, Kim Sadowski, the VP and CFO at the Community Foundation.
Awesome. Well, before we talk leadership and advice and get into stories, I want to hear about you guys as a team because, everybody knows that you guys have been doing and continue to do some incredible things for this region. And I want to talk about maybe, the dynamic and roles in what you all do for the foundation and how you guys complement each other as well.
Maybe I should start
Yeah.
because I'm the newest person on the block. And, what's good about that is I step into an organization, one that does tremendous work, but secondly, has tremendous leaders. And then, very importantly, has tremendous women leadership as well. So I'm in the learning mode, right? I've stumbled a bunch because that's what you do when you're new in an organization. You stumble and you figure stuff out. But my experience since walking in is that the leadership team in general, but very specifically, the women leaders on my team have been embracing, welcoming, and most importantly, supportive. And that's priceless. That's just priceless.
That's everything.
It's everything.
What about you, Kim? I know you're big on the strategy and the operations side of things and of course finance, but how would you describe this team here and what do you appreciate about Katrina and Melanie as leaders?
Well, we don't have enough time for me to list out the things that I appreciate about the two of them. I've worked with Katrina a lot longer. She brings an amazing skill set to our team. And what I would say is she's so good at what she does that there's times I'm like, I'm never going to meet her expectations because she's so good at what she does. It's been amazing to have her on the team because prior to Melanie joining us, it was just me and Katrina as the two females. So we do come at our team with a different lens, and I think it adds value in that. But from things like Katrina, planning, strategy, always having this really big picture lens on everything that we're doing and saying and rolling out, I lean on her quite a bit. When Melanie joined our team, she was very different than the prior CEO. So we have spent the past 5, almost 6 months now, just getting to know each other and understanding our strengths and kind of, it changed where we all where we all add value now, right? So it's just trying to get used to each other and figuring out, how I can support Melanie, how she can support me, and things like that.
And Katrina, how long have you been with the foundation?
The longest.
Yeah.
So I started as a communications associate in 2007. So however many years that is now, going on 17, I think.
And she's held every
Um,
position
yeah. I
in the
started as an entry level communications associate, and then, just as the needs for communications grew, I grew with those needs, and we eventually spun off our own communications department about 7 years or so ago. So now we're a team of 4 in the communications team.
So you really have been super instrumental in the development, I would say, of the foundation, especially from a communications level, which is huge when you're a foundation, right?
Hmm.
Can you maybe speak a little bit about that kind of career advancement journey for any young emerging women leaders that are listening to this? Any advice you have for advancing and innovating?
Sure. I think never be afraid to be yourself is the first thing I'll always say. I've never been anything but me, and take it or leave it. And, um, you know, make yourself indispensable is the best advice I can give. I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm so lucky that I have team members on my team that I consider to be indispensable, and I don't want to ever see them leave. So I'll do anything I can to support them and help them retain them as employees. And that's what you want as you're growing within an organization. Is you want to be flexible and provide value to that organization and its leaders.
Do you think becoming indispensable has more to do with maybe the things on your resume or more to do with your own communication skills and relationship building skills?
Really, it's about being there for your teammates. If one is unavailable, you step in to help. You answer the call when the call is given. When something occurs and your supervisor isn't quite sure how to approach it, or what to do, feel free to throw your ideas out there and be there as a support system for your team members when they are unable to fulfill any of their duties for whatever reason. Step in and help. And just having that nature within a team just makes you so much more valuable when your supervisor's looking at that team for advancement.
Yeah, that's super good advice. I think the most successful people are the most generous, and
Hmm.
when I hear you talk about that, it's
Hmm.
really just it's not, I think everyone is, especially young career or like new career people, don't show them how competent you can be, and like make sure you're asking for a raise every 2 years or you're looking for your next opportunity. I think there's a lot of like young people almost assuming that they're dispensable, so they act almost dispensable and they kind of approach their own career and maybe career relationships from that lens. But like I just know single firsthand that I think the people that get the furthest are the people that are willing to work for free, being willing to be a team player,
Hmm.
do the grunt work if you have to, because someone's got to do it. Like, I love that. I think that's excellent advice. And that kind of leads into my next question for you guys. How did you all navigate being the first and maybe only woman leader in your career?
When I think about my career and my different roles that I've assumed through my career, whether it was doing investment banking to where I spent the vast majority of my career is in a regulated utility sector. Being the first and only sometimes is very lonely, right? I've heard someone say that, and it just gravitated to me because I understood what that meant. To be the first, the only is sometimes very, very lonely. But in order to make my experience a meaningful one, um, that's where I learned really how to build relationships. How do you build relationships? How do you work on recalibrating perceptions. Because sometimes folks believe that you were only in the room because of. And it's like, no, that's not the case, right? Because what begins to happen, I think, with women in particular, when you go into a room, you might shrink yourself in order to either fit in. And I never decided that was the appropriate route for me. Build relationships, don't shrink yourself to fit in, but also understand what motivates the people that are sitting with and next to you. And the only way you do that is really through relationship building. Yeah, but being the first and only is sometimes very, very lonely, but there's strategies to work through it.
Are you a professional woman in Central New York looking to connect with a community that values local talent? Unlock your career's potential with the CNY Women's Network online business directory. For just $9 a month, you can enjoy a premier listing that connects you with a community of engaged customers, recruiters, and executives eager to discover you. Getting started is easy. Simply click the link in the show notes to purchase your listing, and your profile will be live within 72 hours. And one more thing, as a valued listener of the Cultivate CNY podcast, you get 20% off your first month with us. Just use the code Cultivate20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first month with the CNY Women's Network online business directory when you use the code Cultivate20 at checkout. Don't miss out on the opportunity to grow your career and attract new opportunities. Join the CNY Women's Network directory today to be seen, connected, and hired. So last year, right around this time, I had what is now one of my favorite aesthetic treatments done, and I have to tell you guys all about it. So I remember scrolling Instagram and coming across a post from a local woman-owned business that showed a gnarly-looking device hovering over a patient's face, and the caption read something along the lines of, "Now that boat season is over, get rid of the sun damage with our laser facial." I had heard of laser facials before, but I wasn't totally sure exactly what they were for. Then I saw the after photo of this business's patient, and I was shocked. Of course, I had to try it for myself, so I booked myself an appointment at Medicine Based Beauty and never looked back. Medicine Based Beauty is your go-to clinic for medical-grade aesthetic services that blend art and science. They offer Botox, fillers, laser treatments, microneedling, and wellness therapies. And they have highly trained professionals that tailor each treatment to enhance your natural beauty. With locations in Ithaca and Syracuse, Medicine Based Beauty ensures safety and exceptional results for every client. Are you ready to start your beauty journey? Schedule your appointment today by visiting their website at medicinebasedbeauty.com or calling 315-920-0012. Elevate your beauty routine with Medicine Based Beauty. You will not regret it. Can you recall a time where you caught yourself shrinking yourself? Because I know I have.
Absolutely. It's human nature, right?
You just want to fit in, and
you just want to
you don't
fit
want to
in.
ruffle any
You don't want
feathers.
to ruffle any feathers, and then you start to become unsure of yourself in that moment, right? You start to like, I think I know the answer, but I don't want to give it because I don't want to sound like I'm not smart. How many of us have had that experience? I don't want to sound like I'm not smart. And I recall, especially earlier in my career, moving into an industry that was brand new to me. And so you do have to at first sit, listen to understand. But as I've gotten older, I embrace what I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, nope, don't know it. Explain it to me. You're going to have to explain it 2 or 3 times in a way in which I get it. But we have all had that. And it takes courage, it takes time, and it also takes really stepping back and embracing who you are, saying, you know what, I am smart. I belong in every room and at every table I sit at, and getting comfortable with that. But that takes practice and it takes time. And it also takes having, T-Mobile has that Fab Five, right? Well, that's what even happens in organizations. Who can you put around you to help reinforce, to help you think, process, manage in a moment?
I think, leaders who have kind of always been the first and the only, and they've probably really just
accept that this is just the way life is for them. I think the biggest pickle that they can get themselves into is not realizing that just because you've always been kind of a first and only type of person, or maybe a unicorn, people like to say, doesn't mean you're not supposed to have community and have support around that.
There it is.
Because, I mean, I've been in plenty of situations where I have been fully convinced that I was an imposter and I was not qualified. And my natural instinct was to kind of just like deal with it in
Quiet.
silence,
Mhm.
quietly, and, muster through it. But as soon as things shifted for me, it was when I realized I can't be doing this alone. I shouldn't be. And I need to at least have a couple people that I can call and feel safe with to just simply vent about whatever it is I'm going through, so they can like talk some sense into me, because they're, they kind of do the big sister coaching thing of like, are you joking? Like, do you know who you are? Do you know how hard you've worked? You're qualified. You have earned this. So
That's your Fab
I love
Five,
that.
right?
Yeah.
That's your Fab Five. That's who you go behind a closed door with, and you have your moment, right? You allow someone that's trusted to help you think through, how do you manage those fears away?
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the courage in your voice? And, pack away that imposter, please, right? And I've had those people in my life, in my career, that have helped me do that.
Kim's my Fab Five.
Kim is on the list. There it is.
I feel like Kim's in everyone's best.
Yes,
Kim
yes.
is the best. Kim, what about you? Because I know for a fact
I
you
wanted,
have.
I
been the
wanted to
person
answer this
only.
question a little bit differently, because I have been extremely fortunate in my career where it's been few and far between that I felt lonely or felt alone. I think it's partially because of the field that I've chosen. I've been in the not-for-profit industry for as long as I can recall, and in those positions, or even when I was in public accounting, I landed at an amazing small firm that had a lot of women examples. So they might have been only quote unquote part time, because they couldn't work the 60 hours a week because they had a family. But I was able to watch them, and they mentored me. And at the same time, there were people coming up under me that I was trying to mentor. So I've always felt like I've had my Fab Five, and I didn't even know that was the term I was going to coin them. But to watch them and to see how they navigated being a woman in, whether it's public accounting or in the not-for-profit industry, to watch them navigate being a mom, a wife, just a female in in their craft, in their career. And now I feel like I'm at a point in my career where there's like a 360, right? So I have Melanie, who, I'm able to learn from and lean on. I have Katrina, who I don't think I would have made it over the past 9 years without her. And then there's people that we are lifting up underneath us. So we have, as Katrina mentioned, we have amazing staff, and so many of them are young and aspiring, and it's our job to do what we can do so that they can be the next Katrina and the next Kim and the next Melanie.
I love that. It's so important to talk about not only who supports you, but who are you supporting? Because it's almost like a pipeline, if you will, right? Do you guys see yourself, really taking on that mentorship role as you guys continue to advance in your careers as leaders?
I mean, you're not a leader if you're not mentoring, in my opinion. It goes with the program.
I love that.
Leaders who don't mentor, coach, and guide, there's a question mark should be on the end of their title, right? Leader, question mark. You don't mentor, coach, develop,
Yeah.
jump in. And mentoring doesn't have to be formal.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as it sounds. It's
Right.
not having to sit in front of a stranger at a coffee shop, right?
Mhm.
It's leading by example in a lot of ways, and showing people how you navigate through challenges so that when they face them, they have some examples to work from.
And even like unabashedly sharing about those, triumphs.
Mm-hmm.
in whatever medium you choose, but just the willingness to be vulnerable and to just share
Yep.
so others that are listening might not feel so alone or lost. I like
Absolutely.
that.
And I think one thing I've actually watched Katrina do is she is her team's cheerleader, both when she's with them and then even when she's not with them. Like we know the successes that they have accomplished, things that they're doing. Like I've never seen anybody do that as well as Katrina does. So I wanted to call that
Oh,
out
thank
too.
you.
You're welcome.
They're great. Well, that leads me into my next question because I think that's amazing. I think that is, I didn't start actually leading or delegating to other people until this past year. So I feel like I've just continuously learned and have been searching for more answers. And how do I do this correctly? How do I be not only how do I make my goals happen, but how do I be someone that people want to be led by, right? I think that's half the battle. So, Katrina, what is your best advice for leaders and how they can be the best leaders possible?
I almost feel not equipped to answer that question. As I always feel like I'm still learning to be a good leader. Um, but, what comes to mind is gratitude, being grateful and expressing your gratitude to those around you who lift you up, whether that be members of your team or your coworkers that we're talking with today, and acknowledging that you cannot do this on your own. You're not a leader of your own doing. Obviously you are in some ways because you're ambitious, you're working hard, but that's only part of it. The relationships that you've built and those who have supported you or what have made you what you are, and acknowledging that, being humble and grateful every day is the best advice I can give.
That's great advice. What about you, Melanie?
Quoting the Gwen Weber McLeod, who says leadership is not a job you do alone, right? And it's not. And being humble and grateful is really an important thing. But I also like to say eaters eat last, right? Make sure that you are sewing into people and showing them what they need to see about themselves. Because one of the things I've found is a big part of leadership for me is about letting people see the greatness in themselves that they didn't even know existed and shining a light on it, whether you do it through projects, whether you do it through conversation. Just help shine a light on someone else's greatness. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do as a leader.
And it goes a long way, I'm sure.
Sure, it does. When you help people dial into their goodness
Mm-hmm.
or to their superpower that they might not even know is their superpower, I love watching it unfold.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I see that as you're almost helping someone live in their purpose.
Yep.
And especially being a leader that is that's able to really allow whoever they're leading to kind of live in their purpose, hone those skills and really live in alignment with their passion and gifts. I think that's like the goal, right? Is we all want to build teams and organizations that are just like that.
Yeah. So I think the thing that comes to mind for advice for somebody that is an aspiring leader is to just observe those around you. Like I have been very fortunate in my career. I've had quite a few leaders or bosses. Some bosses aren't leaders, right? But I've been able to just observe the good, the bad, and the ugly. And even if somebody has made me feel not a great way, it's still a gift to me because now I know I will never do that to somebody else. So I like to watch how people lead. I like to pick up the good and I like to make sure that I stay away from the not so good. But really, in your career and just in everyday life, just watch how people make other people feel. And I think at the end of the day, if you make somebody feel like they're special or they have a gift or they're worthy, right? Um, that's 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 huge.
I have a question here where I want to ask you guys about the challenges that you've overcome, but I think I want to get a little bit more specific there because at least maybe I'm speaking from personal experience, but I think a lot of our challenges might come from a boundary issue that we might be having, at least for me, right? And I think, it takes it's a process to even learn what are my boundaries. Okay, how do I set them? And as a young woman leader that is trying to figure it out as she goes, I'm curious, what are your guys' best advice for setting boundaries and also honoring them?
I put a good deal of boundaries on my time. I mean, these two can attest to when they look at my calendar. 3 days out of the week, I have blocks of time set aside for no meetings. I think it's really important to not fill your calendar with so many meetings that you're not there for the people you need to be there for, or to um, complete the work that you need to complete. Because if you overextend yourself, if you're anything like me, for the first 10, 15 years of your career, you work 7 days a week, just to make up for the time that you didn't get all of everything done during Monday through Friday. And that's exhausting, and it takes a toll on your personal life. Um, and so, just that one little change, that tweak in my calendar has made just a huge difference in my availability on the weekends and giving myself a little bit more free time so that I have space to think thoughtfully in the workplace and be there for whoever needs me.
Yeah, and I also feel like I was in that pickle where I was doing meetings 4 or 5 days a week, and I was just like, I'm not getting anything done because it takes me at least a couple hours to really get into a project or
Yeah.
get into my work. So I just even think in terms of productivity, just to have designated days where you're being that social in that kind of social brain space, and then the other days where you can really focus and get into flow.
Yep.
Um, that's been huge for me.
Mhm.
Full confession, I am not great at boundaries. I try different things at different parts of the season that I'm in, because
Hmm.
something might work now, but it might not work this winter, or it might not work this busy season. But I think if I could give a couple examples, is I love being home. I love being with my family. I love being with my dogs. I love being at my house. So if there is an evening thing, I have to say, is it essential for me to be there? Do I really have to be there? Because after a very long day, I want to go home, and that is, I think, my boundary that doesn't change much, which doesn't make me a great CEO. Because I don't, like, that is one of the, I guess, CEO roles, and this is something I don't know how Melanie does, is she's on from morning till night, and to see her calendar and see all the things that she is involved in, that's just, so for me, that boundary is there so that I can do
Hmm.
do what do what I enjoy at night. But when I am at work, I tend to, I guess, not be as good as Katrina or as disciplined as Katrina with my calendar. Some days I do all the things that you shouldn't do, back to back meetings from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's not great, right? I've tried different tactics. I've heard some different advice about only, do 5 unique meetings a day. Try not to stag. I try them, but they just don't seem to really work for me, or I go back into my old habits. So I guess I'm trying to say is I'm still a work in progress at this point in my career. And one thing that I am very mindful of as far as boundaries, and I try to instill it in my staff as well, is at the end of the day, even though we can stay connected all evening long, all weekend long, I really try not to. I really try, when we're in the office, give me 100%. But if it can wait till morning, it definitely waits till morning.
I do love that you said that because it really is just, it's going to be different for everyone, what all of our boundaries are, right? But it's really just knowing what do you value the most, what fills your cup up the most, and also what is your goal, right? So, having that hard stop and going home on the weeknights, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all, Kim.
She has 3 adorable dogs, so I don't blame her either.
There you go. Melanie, what about you?
I suck at boundaries.
There it
Nah,
is.
I just do.
I love that you guys are saying this because it's refreshing.
Yeah,
So thank you.
yeah, I just suck there, right? But the reason I suck there is it's important as well for me to connect. This is purpose, right? Part of his purpose, whether it's give full access to your team, right? Yep, I may not be able to meet on this time because I'm back to back to back. But you can have, do you want me to come early? Do you want me to come later? Do you want to meet through lunch? What, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important for me to stop and talk to the Alexes of the world, right? It's also important for me to understand a part of my role is bigger than being a CEO, right? Part of my walk in this world is to be able to be that cheerleader, to tell those stories, to help someone find their why. And so when I look at my calendar on a daily basis, I have just as many business meetings about, coalition this and Micron that, grant review, board meet. Yeah, I have the business side. But at least on a daily basis, I have you need to come sit down and process life discussions. You want to try something new, or life has gotten you by the neck and you might just need a dose of someone. And so I give access. But the way Katrina has outlined it and Kim, sometimes we do it at our own peril, right? Sometimes we do it at our own peril. So the biggest lesson is, step back and take a breath, right? Carve in that hour. I recently went on vacation, came back. This was the first time I said no to meetings, right? I didn't even slip around on vacation to make a phone call. I monitored my intake of emails because I said, you know what? I have a phenomenal team. They'll get a handle. I'll circle back with them when I'm back. And I honored that in a very real way, not just in words, but in deeds this time. So I'm a work in progress because I suck at boundaries.
I'm curious, that was your first time, right?
Yeah.
What did you find, maybe in that silence or peace, if you will?
So what I found is that I really enjoy spending time with my grandchildren, and that it was less about the outside world last week and it was more about what I pour into those same little people that need that same level of encouragement, that will need that same support to do big things in this world. And then the third thing that's most importantly, what you recognize is the world does go on. Things happen. And you just step back and you breathe, right? And that's what I did this week. I just took a deep breath and enjoyed tremendously my world that was right in front of me. So it's pretty cool. But I'm 40 years into my work life and discovering the power and importance of breathing.
Well, I'm sure you're feeling refreshed and inspired because I know I do whenever I unplug.
Yep.
I don't know why, but I'm really good at unplugging. I'm really good at just
Good.
ignoring and coming back to it. But
hold tight to that, please.
yeah,
Alex.
I think there's balance. I think there's a little bit of avoidance in there too. So I'm not perfect either. So, are there any specific challenges that you guys can think of at the top of your mind in your career that you overcame came out on the other side and maybe realized that everything does happen for a reason. And even though it's kind of sucked, it was for the best.
I'll start this time, if
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. What one thing that came, one example that came to mind was when our previous CEO took a sabbatical leave. And when I had first started at the foundation, there was our VP of development, our beloved Jen Owens. Um, at the time when the sabbatical conversation had started, she was the one that was going to be I'll call it the interim CEO role, but in the CEO role during the CEO sabbatical. And she got an amazing opportunity and took a job as a CEO in another foundation. And I had only been at the foundation just a couple years, and the CEO was still gonna take his sabbatical, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is gonna happen now?" And I remember asking him, "Are you still gonna take the sabbatical?" And he was like, "Yes." And I said, "Well, who are you gonna appoint to handle your responsibilities?" And he said, "You." And I immediately said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you can keep the lights on." And I thought to myself, I'm going to do much more than keep the lights on. Right. So I had, again, Katrina was my partner in crime, but I had an amazing team of leaders that I would say I was scared to death to work with them at that level, but those leaders are still there. And I got to learn so much about their strengths that I had no idea, right? And we got to figure out how to work together differently as a team. And I think some of the things that we learned during that period, we still do today. So I think from that, I was scared to death. But I think at the end of it, I built relationships with the three of them. And I think we all built relationships with each other that have gotten us to where we are today.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing experience too.
It was.
What about you, Katrina?
So when I think about challenges, I think back to when I was first starting out in my career and all the cringeworthy moments that I had. I won't get into because I didn't come equipped with how to manage conflict in the workplace. It's not something they train you in college, right? Um, and growing up a single child without any siblings, I didn't really have the um, experience with navigating conflict without having like explosive emotional reactions. So I have quite a few of those cringeworthy moments in my head. And the advice I would give is if you're starting out or if you're new in your career, don't wait until you recognize that you need that trait or that skill. Work on it from the beginning so that when you are against conflict, if it and you will, everyone does often, you're well equipped and able to manage it. So, I'm still always working on that myself, but I think that, now that I have some of the skills under my belt, I can manage it so much better, have much better perspective as well as to the importance of things at work versus, just overall life. And that comes with time and experience. But, get those skills early. That's what I say.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because conflict resolution is, I think, one of the hardest parts of being a leader. Um, my avoidance really kicks in when I have to deal with conflict. So I could always use some advice there. What is some of your best conflict resolution advice
Mm-hmm.
now that you've got the tools under your belt?
Well, my problem was the opposite. I would just go full on.
You had like more like anxious
Yes, I was
attachment
just
to it,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
and I recommend taking a breath. Always wait until you feel calmer,
Yeah.
even if that means waiting a day. So, get your thoughts in order, your emotions in check so that you can speak more eloquently than maybe your initial reaction would allow you to do. And then, the advice, if you read all the books about conflict management and all that, the biggest takeaway is put yourself in the other person's shoes. Oftentimes, whatever they've said or done wasn't personal It wasn't meant to be anything of harm to you. They had a reason for doing it, and it may be a very reasonable reason, right?
Mhm.
So have some empathy, put yourself in their shoes, and then when you have that conversation, make the conversation safe for the person you're talking with, right? So that means acknowledging their feelings, acknowledging why they may have said or done what they did before you get into, well, this is how it made me feel. Um, and I think that's important too, is talk about how that affected you. Is different than saying you're wrong because people automatically become defensive. But if they know that they've hurt you or caused some sort of emotional reaction that they didn't mean to have, it brings their guards down. Put yourself in that other person's place and how they would like to receive this information.
I would love to get into the foundation and talk maybe a little bit about what you guys have been working on this year, or, obviously what you can speak about. This episode is going to be coming out this fall. So, is there anything exciting you'd like to share about the foundation right now?
One of the biggest things that we're so proud of is our commitment around our recommitment around work we're doing in support of lead and lead reduction, literacy on all levels, equity, and that which we continue to do on college access and readiness. It's powerful work that drives and has meaningful impact, but there's so much more to do, especially as we begin to think about how do we prepare for the future here with all of the transformational things that are going on, but still in the face of great issues around poverty, around housing. All of those things become critically important. So, whether we're leaning in a financial support or whether we're leaning in on thought leadership, it is so critically important to be present on not only our big initiatives, but some of the emerging ones. And I don't know if both Kim and Katrina want to lean in on any parts of that as well.
Sure. So, one of the things I'm super excited about is our local impact investing. So, the board has committed up to 5% of our main pool to be utilized in things such as equity investments, loan to nonprofits. And that initiative to me, um, being that I was in the not for profit industry for so many years, I recall so many projects could not get off the ground because the funding mechanism was a reimbursement model. So we have so many not for profits that might have 30 days operating cash on hand. You cannot get a large project off the ground if you don't have those reserves to do that. So we have stepped in and we have the funds available so that if those nonprofits have the grant, have the contract, but just don't have the means to get that off the ground, we have ways where we can invest or do a loan so that they can, in fact, do those things that our community needs.
From a communications perspective, I think what I'm most proud of for the past 5, 6 years is our equity work. Every year gets a little more challenging with the political landscape. I think the word equity is even considered a dirty word now, all of a sudden. So it's a constant communications challenge. And I'm so proud of the work that, my team has put in to, um, you know, welcome people into the conversation about equity and the work that we're doing. We're not here to be any type of put anyone on the defensive, so to speak, about the concept of the fact that not everyone has had the same opportunities in this community for the history of Syracuse and the country. We feel that as an organization, we have a responsibility to address that, right some of those wrongs, bring down some of those barriers that have been put into place over decades, and educate the community on that because many people just don't understand what those barriers were that were put into place to keep a group of people down. And I'm so proud of the hard work we've done internally and externally to educate ourselves, to learn, to grow, to talk about it. We're not afraid to talk about it. We're happy to dedicate more dollars towards addressing these issues and looking forward to what we have to come.
I love that. Very positive and so necessary. With all of the work that you guys have been doing and all of the investment that is continuing to come into our region, where do you see Syracuse and just central New York in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Loaded question, right?
It's a loaded question, and but we have to really manage the moment, maximize the moment, lean in to the moment, do it with eyes wide open, do it with a collaborative partnership to ensure that 5 years from now, I'm not sitting here, Katrina is not sitting here, nor is Kim sitting here saying, well, we have so much more to do, and we need to start. I want to start talking about what has happened as a result of what we're doing today. How are all boats rising in this moment? Because for us not to would be a crime. And so the foundation fully loves and is committed to the role of being present externally to ensure that all boats rise, and ensuring that donors and fund holders have a voice in helping also drive and support the future to ensure all boats rise. It's good. I'm confident. I'm hopeful that 5 years from now, Alex, when we're sitting here, we're going to talk about poverty reduction. We're going to say our housing plans fully orchestrated and there is less homelessness. We're going to talk about equity and not cringe. We're going to be courageous and loving and thoughtful. We're going to talk about how many children in this region have gone on to post-secondary education and is now turning their lives back into doing unbelievable things right here in this community. We're going to talk about strong nonprofits and the resiliency that's now been created as a result of all of this. We're going to talk about workforce development and how we're almost at a zero unemployment rate. We're going to talk about these things, and we're going to do it in such a way that makes us beam with pride because all of us own the moment. And so I'm feeling good about it. Apprehensive because we just have to take all of those steps, but I'm feeling confident and I'm feeling good.
That's amazing. I love to hear that, especially coming from you, Melanie.
She's our CEO.
If anyone wants to support, get involved, get in contact with the foundation, maybe learn more about what you guys do, where should we send them? Or maybe what opportunities exist for people to get involved?
So our website, CNYCF.org, stands for Central New York Community Foundation. And, the best way to get involved is to support the causes that matter to you. The Community Foundation is here. The whole purpose of our mission is to connect those who care about the community with the causes that need support. And so regardless of how you can give, whether it be $1 a month or $1,000 a month, we have options available for you to support specific causes or initiatives of the Community Foundation, or establish a fund to store your legacy and have it stewarded off into the future. So there's plenty of options for anyone out there who wants to support the community. Visit the website, reach out to us, and we're happy to help in any way.
Well, I think that's all we have for today. It's a pleasure sitting down with you guys. My first time with Katrina, but not my first time with Melanie and Kim. So if you are listening and haven't heard those episodes or read Melanie's interview, you can check out our blog or our podcast. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have you guys here today. Thank you guys for taking the time to sit down with me in your busy schedules. And I cannot wait to see what you guys continue to do for Central New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you left us a review and make sure you're subscribed to the show. Speaking of the show, if you know anyone or if you are interested in being our next guest on Cultivate CNY, be sure to submit us an application. You can just click the link in the show notes. And if you're a business owner that's interested in getting in front of our audience, you can go ahead and email us at podcast@cnywomensnetwork.com to learn more about sponsorship and advertising opportunities. All right, that's it for now. I'll catch you guys next Monday.